After hearing Stephen Curry's comments at 2024 Golden State Warriors Media Day, I didn't hear a whole lot of confidence regarding this roster heading into the 2024-25 NBA season. So, could a big move be coming for the Golden State Warriors? We're going to be discussing that on today's show. But before we do, guys, if you think the Warriors need to make a move, if you kind of agree with Steph Curry's tone, maybe not his words, and that Golden State needs to improve this roster, go down below and smash that thumbs up icon. Like today's video, and we'll get started with today's show. What's going on, Dub Nation? You're watching Warriors Today by Chat Sports. I am your host, Tyler Smith, and on today's show, could a big move be coming? Could a big trade be coming for the Golden State Warriors this season? We're going to dive into that on today's show. Following yesterday's comments made by Stephen Curry at Media Day, yeah, he seemed optimistic about this Golden State Warriors roster heading into the new season, but his tone just didn't signal a whole lot of confidence, in my opinion. Listen, if you think about what happened this offseason, right? Golden State, they missed out on their top two trade targets of the summer. Two guys who could really swing a deal and really swing Golden State in the direction of contending in the Western Conference. Now, we know that, Paul George, Lauri Markkanen, like these were guys that were being floated around. They were being talked about as potential movers during this summer. But listen, Stephen Curry, he said publicly yesterday that he was involved in the recruitment of Paul George, but the Clippers wouldn't budge. Lauri Markkanen, he was like, yeah, I'm involved in these talks, but I'm not a decision maker, and I'm not somebody who's going to get the Jazz to go give up their best player and bring him to Golden State. So, yeah, you missed on these two trade targets, but what comes next now? Listen, Stephen Curry, he's involved with these type of decisions, not necessarily making the final call or calling up the NBA league offices and saying, hey, we just made a trade. He's not doing that, but he is involved. He is in the know about it. And that's good that Stephen Curry is being consulted about these things because he's basically been with this roster. He's basically been with this organization, has become over the last decade. He is the Golden State Warriors, and he better be, kind of be in the know about what's going on around the roster and what moves that this front office might make. Now, Anthony Slater talked about what Stephen Curry's feelings were regarding this season and heading in without a secondary scoring punch. He said Curry clearly wanted a more proven second scorer next to him this season. He enters training camp without one. Better than the public, he understands why these deals didn't get done and what other trade options the Warriors declined. Like I said, Stephen Curry, he's involved with these discussions. He knows what's going on within the Warriors front office and what players they may be targeting. And, he gives his input on those. And I'm sure he would have liked for Paul George to come to Golden State. He was in on the recruitment. I'm sure he would have liked for Lauri Markkanen to come to Golden State. Would have been an elite floor spacer and an elite duo of shooting next to Stephen Curry. This doesn't mean that they aren't keeping their eyes peeled. They aren't keeping their nose to the grindstone on, many trade targets that might come about. But we just did see one of the biggest trades of the summer in Karl-Anthony Towns heading to New York to play for the Knicks. That was a guy that I've discussed on this channel that could be a big-time piece to vault Stephen Curry and the Golden State Warriors back into championship contention. He's not on the market anymore. There's very minimal guys that could go make this Warriors team a true contender out there on the trade market right now. But that doesn't mean that they're not keeping their eyes peeled. That doesn't mean that they're still not going to make calls and see what's out there. At least they're going to have to, right? That's their job. But this is the roster they have in place right now. The Golden State Warriors, they're set. They released their training camp roster. And Curry sounded optimistic about this roster. He's excited for the new guys that they brought in, the veteran additions of Kyle Anderson, Buddy Hield, and DeAnthony Melton. He's excited to see the progression of Brandon Pajemski and Trace Jackson Davis and all those guys. And he said that they can be a relatively competitive team. He said, we can be a relevant team early. What does that mean, though, Steph? Like, you're saying you got to go out there and compete. But what does that really mean in the grand scheme of things? What is relevant? Does relevant mean you're going to end up in the play-in tournament when it's all said and done? Does relevant mean you're going to be a bona fide playoff team? Does relevant mean you're just going to, be around 500, maybe even miss the play-in tournament? I don't know. But here's what Steph Curry had to say about how this all shakes out in today's NBA. He said only one gets to say, yeah, we had championship aspirations. I think we're in that position where we can be a relevant team early. We can give ourselves a chance to compete, then assess where we are. So I kind of gave you guys that full quote there because that back end, it certainly packs a punch. So translation, trade calls will be made. Golden State will be incredibly active leading up to the 2025 NBA trade deadline, and that's a good thing, right? We know that they can't just sit on their hands and head into next season or head into the playoff push of this season, because let's be honest, we're all expecting Golden State to be around that play-in area. Whether it's looking at the 6 seed when the deadline comes around, or looking at the 10 seed and they need to really make a move to get into that play-in tournament or even become a full-on playoff team. Trade calls will be made, and I'm glad that we have this bit of assurance, but we'll know more when the season starts. We'll know more about how this Dubs team is going to play pretty early on in this NBA season, because they play some pretty tough opponents to start the new year. Now, as far as their first couple of games go, very, very winnable. You play the Trailblazers, they stink. And then you get two, quasi-revenge games, in a sense, where the Jazz, you got to go match up against Lauri Markkanen, who just got that extension. The Clippers, who wouldn't make deals with you for Paul George sending him to Golden State. You got those two back-to-back. Then it's weird, back-to-back days hosting the Pelicans. They're only two of their three only home games of the first 10 to start the year. And then a 5-game road trip where they cap it off with the Celtics, the Cavs, and the Thunder. And man, those are three of the best teams in the NBA, if you're asking me. I think that, listen, if Golden State wants to make a move early on this season, they're not going to do it after 10 games. But that 5-game road stretch, man, we're going to learn about who these Warriors are. We're going to know what their ceiling is going up against some of the NBA's best. And, just looking at the Celtics matchup here, you lost by damn near 50 last year to them. There's going to have to be a little bit of improvement. There's going to have to be a better matchup, a better fight against the defending champs. Or Golden State's going to have to look in the mirror and say, hey, we need to improve this roster. Now, what is Golden State's front office message? What has their message been to Steph Curry about improving this roster? Here's what Slater had to say and more on that. Curry has been assured by the front office and ownership that they will maintain a commitment to winning while he is still around, showing a willingness to use draft picks or young players should the right trade come along. My question after hearing that is, who's to say that's the truth? With the lack of movement, with the lack of action that Mike Dunleavy has taken in the trade market this year, who's to say that that's the truth, that they're going to send away some young players? Because they were keeping Jonathan Kuminga and Brandon Podziemski out of any of those Paul George or Lauri Markkanen trades, according to the organization. So are you really willing to mortgage that? Are you really willing to take a big swing for Stephen Curry to pursue a 5th championship ring? Only time will tell, but Mike Dunleavy, he thinks that Golden State is in prime position to get a deal done. So we're probably as impatient a franchise as you can be right now, given our time horizon and all that, but there's a fine line between impatience and undisciplined. I feel good about the discipline that we held this summer and the roster that we've built and the growth from within that we're going to have. I know everybody is always looking for big headline breaking news and all that, but I really like this team. I'm not going to say that I necessarily am 100% disagreeing with Mike Dunleavy in the fact that he really likes this team. But I'm not going to say I love this team. I'm not going to say that I think this team has a championship ceiling. And guess what? The front office knows that. Anthony Slater said earlier that there's a consensus belief that this isn't a title team. This team can't compete for an NBA championship with those monsters up in the West. And guess what? If that's apparent by the 20th game, 25th game of the season, Steph better speak up, because there's just no point in him playing out the last couple years of his NBA career. There's no point in him signing that 1-year extension if they're just going to be a bottom feeder in the Western Conference. Steph said over the summer that he didn't want to be a bottom feeder. So he better speak up if the Warriors aren't looking like a team that's going to compete in the West when it's all said and done. If that is the case, if Steph does speak up and says, hey, Mike Dunleavy, we got to make a move. I need somebody next to me. There's too much of a burden. I'm facing a bunch of doubles. Who is going to be available? Well, I'm going to ask you guys first who you guys think that Golden State should trade for. Let me know down in the comments. Name a player that the Golden State Warriors should make a trade for, preferably somebody that's a secondary scoring punch next to Stephen Curry, or somebody who shores up the front court. We're going to talk about those kind of guys on the next part of today's show. 3 blockbuster trade targets for the Golden State Warriors to put some necessary star power next to number 30. But before we do, I got to get you guys swagged out this fall. Look fresh this fall. With Warriors polos on sale with our friends over at Fanatics using this link below, chatsports.com/WarriorsPolo. You can get it in the blue, you can get it in the white, you can get it in the yellow, you can get it in the black. All colors available, and you might stumble across a 25% off deal. Not everybody can rock a polo as fresh as this one right here, but hey, you can rock yours today. Season's less than a month away. Chatsports.com/Warriors Polo. The link will be in the comments and description of today's video to make it easy for you guys. Look fresh in some Warriors Polo gear today. All right. I know. Not many. The Warriors Dub Nation, you guys are kind of split on this name right here, Jimmy Butler. And you see the hair on Jimmy Butler right there? That was from last year's 2023 NBA Media Day. This year, he said he came with a traditional haircut. Came late off a flight from Paris. Said there's no shenanigans this year. Is Jimmy Butler locked in to playing for the Miami Heat? Or is he still kind of voicing his frustrations with the front office and not giving him that 2-year max extension that he's looking for? And he's just coming to the, media day just to check off the box, just to clock in and clock out. Not coming with any funny business, not coming with any sort of personality this year. Jimmy Butler could be fed up with the situation in Miami, and who knows, could end up being a deal to Golden State. There's rumors about it. Golden State's interested. Miami's not going to pay the guy. Make the deal. This will cost the most, though, of any player that we talk about on today's show. Next up, I know. I'm not the biggest fan of this guy either, but Brandon Ingram is a necessary name that we do have to talk about. And listen, as far as guys who could just go out and get buckets off the dribble, creating their own shot, Brandon Ingram is about as good of a trade target as there is for Golden State. But to me, this feels like a last resort for Golden State. If they wanted to make a Brandon Ingram trade, they would have done it already. The issues with him is he's going to be commanding a big-time contract and a pending free agent in 2025, and he's looking for $50+ million a year. Now, to be fair, has Brandon Ingram reached his ceiling? We don't know yet. He's still a fairly young player, about 27 years old, but man, we just haven't seen that big-time leap that we thought we were going to see from Brandon Ingram over all these years. And I don't know, not the best defender, a little bit lazy. I'm not necessarily sure that this is the perfect fit for Golden State, but man, if Andrew Wiggins is playing a little bit better this season and Golden State still can't score the basketball, I think they might need to give New Orleans a call just to get a little bit of a rental to see if Brandon Ingram fits in well enough with this Warriors team. Now, let me know down in the comment section. If you had to choose one of these two players, I think it might be fairly easy, but I could be wrong. You guys might not want the older player in Jimmy Butler. I might want to go youth movement in Brandon Ingram. But let me know down in the comments. Who would you trade for? Pick one for me. Type JB for Jimmy Butler, BI for Brandon Ingram. I want to hear from Dub Nation. And the last name, as you can see, all three of these names are guys we've talked about over the past couple of months. But man, Jarrett Allen, if we're talking about somebody who, if there's not a secondary scoring option out there, not somebody who can go create their own jump shot, a big-time hole in this Warriors roster is in the front court, is in the size department. Only one 7-footer on the roster, and the man's on a 2-way contract. Shout out Quentin Post. But man, Golden State's front court, we got Draymond Green saying that Kyle Anderson is going to be playing big-time minutes at the center spot this year. I'm not super comfortable with that. You know what I am comfortable with? A 7-foot rim protector. I know it's a 6'11", whatever, a 7-footer rim protector in Jarrett Allen. I mean, the guy is a pick-and-roll monster, a lob threat for Steph Curry, and could defend the rim at such a high level, just 2 years removed from an all-star campaign. He's a walking 16-10 every single night, and that's something that the Warriors roster just doesn't have on it currently. If I had to pick, I would honestly go with Jarrett Allen here because he probably would cost the least, and Golden State, Cleveland, they've talked about trades before. Cleveland doesn't seem to be moving in the direction of a Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley front court for the future. Jarrett Allen could be expendable for them. I want Golden State to make a call. But with all that said, with Golden State in a position to make a trade at some point this year, with all the depth on their roster, I can't have Mike Dunleavy sitting on his hands. I cannot deal with another year of, oh, yeah, we were disciplined. Oh, yeah, we didn't give away our draft capital. Oh, yeah, we didn't give away any young players. Well, guess what? Where did it probably end you up? Probably back again in the 10 seed. Probably in the play-in tournament once again. Listen, I get not wanting to make a deal that could potentially set the franchise back 5-10 years. But is Jimmy Butler going to set the franchise back 5-10 years? I don't think so. Is Brandon Ingram going to set back the franchise 5-10 years? No, because I don't think the trade's going to cost that much. Is Jarrett Allen going to set the franchise back 5-10 years? No, because the Warriors have a glaring hole in the front court. So any of those three guys would be a logical move for Mike Dunleavy to go call up those teams and try to make a deal for. But we are going to roll into this season with the group that we have. I'm not going to be too impatient where we're making a move in the first 10 games of the season. But man, I'm just not too optimistic about this team being one of the top dogs in the West. So if they're not, then you have to make a move. With that being said, that'll do it for today's edition of Golden State Warriors Today by Chat Sports. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. We're bringing you Golden State Warriors content all season long like nobody else on YouTube. Make sure you're locked in with us. YouTube.com/WarriorsTV. We'll see you in the next one. Let's go Dubs.